to 9, just throw it in the chat box. On a scale of 1 to 9, how are you feeling right now? Scale of 1 to 9. Where'd the chat box go? All right, it moved to another screen. Let me bring that back. Let's see, where are we today? We got some 8s, some 9s, some 7s, a 3s, a 6, some 5s. Where we are well represented, not just Texas and Manchester here. All right. Excellent. Well, let's just see where you are on a scale of Betty Davis. Where does that land you? Where are you? I see some 9s. Yeah, that sounds about right. It's all those puppies, damn it. It's going to put you up there to that 9. I started there with taking him to the vet this morning. Then I ended up, now I'm on 5, I think. Some of you are changing your numbers now that you've seen the chart. Okay, very good. How aware are we of our feelings from moment to moment? I don't know. One of my favorite coaching questions. What do you want to be when you give up? Isn't that great? Well, I always start with some cartoons just in case my humor doesn't always land. And you know, we learn better, we remember better, our immune system is better when we laugh. So make sure we make that happen. Here's a nod to the Byron Katie fans. Is there any Byron Katie fans here that are familiar with the work? I see some heads bobbing. Indeed. Love that. Is it true? So good. All righty. This cartoon is here for a reason as we watch the Noah's Ark sail off in the rain. Oh crap, was that today? So I put this up as a, because years ago when I did a different program that we were selling at the end of the webinar, this was representing the opportunity that was about to sail away in a fun way. And so this is to let you know there is no opportunity that's going to float away. We don't really sell our RIM training as much as we invite people to learn about it. And when it resonates, it does. And then we come play together. And if not, we don't. So things don't change or disappear. There's no discounts for signing up for anything. So I just want to throw that out there and set that aside so you don't have to wait to wonder if that other shoe is going to ever drop. It is not. I'm happy to share with you what's involved in it and all of that. So why are you here today? Feel free to throw your number in the chat, number 1, 2, or 3. Are you here because you come to all of these meetings if you're available, just to network and fellowship with the guys? Or you're interested in taking clients deeper? Oh, I said 1, 2, or 3. I guess it's A, B, or C. Or more likely because of my handsome picture on the promo. So feel free to throw some bonus points if you get the right answer here. It seems to be a mixed bag here. Oh, so all of the above, that works. Okay. All right, so we're going to dive into, well, we're going to dive into all of the above. You get to look at me if you want, or you can control how much of your screen you dedicate to the slide presentation here. Well, I do a lot of training on Zoom. I sometimes spend 7 days in a row on Zoom, and we figured out ways to make it fun. And I love it when we don't have a slide deck, but you can control at least how much of that you look at. I'd rather see people. So I got a big circular screen and I can see everybody. It's like being in person now. So I just miss that so much. But I'm grateful we can be together thanks to Zoom and technology. In a moment, actually right now, I'm going to close the chat box. And dang it, I lost my other thing here. Oh, because I just closed it. It was in the chat box. I'm going to share a quiz with you. And I'm going to put the file in the chat box so that you can, I guess it's a two-step process. There's a PDF that's right now in the chat box. I think you have to click to download it. And then once it's downloaded, you'll be able to click to open it. And it should pop right up on your screen. And it's fillable. It's a fillable form on your screen. Or you can print it out if you're next to a printer and would rather do that. And whatever works for you. And Tim, can I recruit you to kind of keep an eye, not kind of, could you absolutely just keep an eye on the chat box for me and kick me onto the table if there's questions that I need to answer?
Yes, be glad to.
Thank you. And so there's this quiz. This is called the EOS quiz. You don't even have to worry about it just yet. In a moment, I'm going to tell you what it's all about and lead you through the quiz. Now, the EOS stands for the Emotional Operating System. And we all have an emotional operating system. It's a feedback system in our body and our body knows exactly what to do with our emotions. It's like you don't have to check in with your body to ask it every 5 minutes if it's cold or not. It'll tell you, right? And emotions flow through our body and are processed by your natural emotional operating system. And we'll talk about that a little bit later and do an experience with it. And the quiz is just a way to tap into, start to identify your own journey. Where are you in with your emotional operating system, and what might be the next step for your own emotional evolution and your own growth? So we've been using this in our personal growth retreats, and we've started adding it to our training to day one, help students identify what their journey is about. And we usually spend about an hour diving into this piece of it. It's one of 5 components that we use for that purpose. And today we're going to spend a few minutes playing with it, but just to stir the pot a little bit. All right. So this is what it looks like. Let me know if, well, don't let me know if you have troubles, because I don't know how to fix your troubles, but hopefully you all have the quiz on your screen or in front of you in some way. And if you don't, the way to cheat on this is just to grab any piece of paper, and we're just going to ask 16 questions, and you're just going to write down a number for each one. So you can number them 1 through 16, make a list on any piece of paper, and you don't need those little answer guides there if you don't have it, or you can fill it out on the screen. Are we all set? I see a couple heads bobbing in the right direction. It's a good thing. Okay. So the goal here is to not even think about it, just to receive whatever number. Your unconscious knows the answer before I finish the question. So this is going to go very quickly, and it'll seem a little bit repetitive, but it only takes a couple minutes to do the whole thing. So just follow along with me as I read the questions. In fact, so right now, just go ahead and close your eyes. Just close your eyes for a moment and just settle into your body. Maybe just take a deep breath in through the nose and a big audible sigh on the exhale. And just receive whatever number pops in from 1 to 10, 10 being always and 1 being never, so 10 being most. I am in touch with my feelings from moment to moment. Just receive whatever number pops in like that. Open your eyes and write that down next to number 1 and fill that in. 1 through 10, 10 being most. Okay, second question. When my body communicates through a noticeable sensation, whether pain, twitch, pleasure, or other, I close my eyes to allow and receive the inner message. Just receive whatever number is to that, 1 through 10. Number 3, I feel that I am supported by life, regardless of what's happening around me. Number 4, I ask for what I need. I ask for what I need. Number 5, again, just sensing the answer that just pops in without even thinking about it. When I feel sad, I allow myself to feel it as fully as possible in the moment. When I feel sad, allow it. Number 6, I feel loved. Number 7, when I feel angry, I welcome the feeling so I can understand its source. Number 8, I feel lovable. Number 9, I feel empowered that I can dissolve feelings of regret. Number 10, and just receiving the number. I see you looking up to the right there, thinking of answers. Number 10, I know and communicate my boundaries effectively. Number 11, I love my life. Number 12, when I feel jealous, I pay attention to what the other person has that I want, and I act to increase that in my life. Number 13, I love myself. And number 14, I allow myself to receive love and support from others. And number 15, I trust that my emotional resilience is greater than traumatic experience. And number 16, I feel I am as good as other people. Okay, pencils down. I'm kidding. I got a spark out of that. I appreciate that. That's why we did the cartoons in advance. So as you just look back over the scores that you wrote down, just go back and notice which ones are your lower scores. Just notice 3 or 4 of the lower scores. It's not that tight of a science yet. If there's 4 of them or 3 of them, maybe there's a tie. Just notice 3 or 4 of the lowest scores, and you can just make a note of which question number are your lowest scores. And did anyone need, just write it down on a piece of paper where you need to know what the topics are? Okay. And in a moment, we're gonna go to breakout rooms and share with a partner a couple of things. So if you want to make a note, because I realize that, oh, it's on your screen, it's not in the Zoom. So you'll still have your screen with you when you go to the other room. Okay, it's not like you're going down the hall. Okay, you'll still have it on the screen with you. So we can share that, good. So just notice the 3 or 4 sentences or questions that had the lowest scores, and notice what totally resonates, like no surprise there that you circled that one. Just wave wave or nod or something. And did anyone have that experience that there's something there that's not a surprise at all? Okay. And is there anything there that is a surprise that you gave yourself a lower score than you would have thought of or would have thought? And as you reflect on 3 or 4 that have the lowest score, is there a theme? Is there a thread that pulls through several of the lower scores? And whatever else wants to be known from this as you reflect on it. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to reflect with a partner. And it looks like we have 22 participants. And Paul, are you doing breakouts?
I can do them for you, yes.
Okay, yeah, so let's just put everyone in pairs. So it's at 11 breakout rooms. Will magically put us in pairs. And what we'll do is we'll just take maybe 4 or 5 minutes to share, and I'll broadcast the message when we're a couple minutes in, so you can decide if you want to go back and forth or if you want to have one of you share and then the other. But I'll send a broadcast message to the screen when we're about halfway through. So if you hadn't switched, if you're taking turns, you can do that. So yeah, just share whatever wants to be shared about that. Generally though, it's about what resonates and what doesn't. And maybe it's a surprise and a new knowing, or maybe it's something you want to argue with. I don't know. Whatever wants to be shared about that, and if there's any themes. And then we'll come back to the big group in a couple of minutes. So whenever you're ready, Paul, will they go automatically, or do they have to click on join?
I believe they'll have to click on join. So I will create them now and open all the rooms.
Yeah, you do need to click on join to go there. All right, welcome back. Looks like everybody came back. Everybody's smiling. That's a good sign. Nobody's in tears yet. I'll keep pushing. Okay.
Was that your goal, Michael?
Always. That's how I get paid. All right. So yeah. So who would be willing to share anything that came out of that? You don't have to rehearse it in your head and figure it out. Just speak your name and start talking. We can see you thinking, practicing, rehearsing in your head, you know.
I'm happy to share. So the 4 lowest for me were the being in touch with feelings, asking for what I need, welcoming anger and boundaries. And I was especially surprised at the being in touch with feelings. Um, I believe generally I have a whole lot of self-awareness, but I think it was in the moment to moment piece of it that brought that down lower. And yeah, I do see a theme of how all four of these could very intimately be connected, of not being open to anger as much that might cause me to set firmer boundaries, not asking for what I need and boundary containers. Uh, and yeah, it was an interesting activity.
Hmm. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing that. It does, yeah, the boundaries and asking, and even the anger, I totally see the thread there. It's really interesting that how you pointed out the in touch with feelings from moment to moment. Because what I find, I work with mostly coaches and therapists in this work, and it's a pretty self-aware group. But I think you're in really good company. It's quite common that that we compartmentalize our feeling time. Like, well, I do my emoting when I run, or I have my hour of power and I have my time set aside where I do that. And I think especially as men, we're taught from itty bitty little men not to express emotions in the moment and not to let emotions direct and control our lives. So we think we can set them aside somewhere and deal with them at a specific or more appropriate time. I'll put in little air quotes. And when we can allow them in real time, they're just so much more effective. So what would that feel like, to go through life and just sensing it in your body when they show up and letting them dissolve on their own, the negative ones, and letting them expand the positive emotions. So it's good stuff. Is there anything else that wants to be shared about that from you, Andrew, or anyone else? Ken?
For me, it's the opposite, Joe. And I was sharing with my teammate that I consider myself an empath. I mean, I feel my feelings most of the time, if not all the time, but I can sense with a high degree of accuracy other people's too. And sometimes I think that's a really good thing, to be able to be that in touch with folks, but it also sometimes feels like a curse too. It's exhausting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Any other empaths in the room who can relate to that? Yeah. And so also common in professions like ours, where we want to support and help others and make a difference. And one of the things we're always working on, is to be in compassion rather than empathy. And at least you can have your own definitions of empathy. For most of the world needs more empathy. In our RIM community, we separate the two, as empathy is being in their pain. It can really lead to standing in their shoes and experiencing their experience. And we can be in compassion without being in their pain. And so that's the goal, is to really shift our awareness into compassion rather than experiencing and taking that on. And that means doing our own work so that we're not triggered, and so that we're not, so that it's not so easy to slip into their work. And for natural empaths, that can just be more challenging. So oftentimes there's energy work to do around that, and it's different for everyone. And I have not, someone just shared in the chat box about the RIM thing. Of all the groups that I didn't mention what RIM stands for by now, I should have thrown that out there on this home slide. It stands for Regenerating Images in Memory, by the way, Regenerating Images in Memory. When we work with kids and teach this in schools with teachers and all, we're calling it Releasing the Inner Magician, which was actually its original name. So very good. Now, here's the thing. I've got another cartoon here, because I love this, because I flunked out of calculus in college, which was not a good thing, because I was on a chemistry scholarship, and that didn't end well for me. But right here in the middle of the math problem, it says, then a miracle occurs. So you should be more explicit. We could talk forever about feelings and processing them. and nothing changes. If you have a beautiful lawn and you suddenly have a patch of weeds, you could take samples of those weeds to the garden center, and the horticulturalist will tell you why they're flourishing. They can talk about chemical balance and the pH balance of the soil. They can talk about the drought recently or the excessive rain you've had recently or whatever it is, that why these weeds are thriving. And then you can go home and proudly say to your neighbors and your family, oh, that's just there because, and you can fill in the blank. And you'll feel better knowing why you have the weeds. And yet you'll still have the weeds. So figuring it out doesn't really change anything, but it does make us feel a little better. So we can talk about it and analyze it. I would rather just spend the time to pull the weeds out by the root and be done with that. And so that's the goal here. We don't have to figure it out or work so hard. It doesn't have to be the long, torturous process that we have been led to believe. And the emotions themselves are quite neutral. So this would apply to complex PTSD, similarly to the paper cuts, the small t traumas of life, and learning to allow emotions to flow in the moment, from moment to moment, because they do the work themselves. We just don't have to figure it out. The body will take care of this for you. I would love to tell you a dozen, or at least however many are there, 6 success stories maybe, and I'm not going to do that because you all have success stories. You know how they end fabulously and brilliantly. That's why we tell them. And so we have a success story for nearly every population that we work with. And so people ask, if I work in corporate, I work with executives or C-suite, is this too personal? Or I work with kids, or I work with ADHD people, or I work with people with a lot of trauma, or in weight loss, we have a lot of trauma where it shows up. So where do we apply it? Yes, it works with everybody who has emotions, who are otherwise mentally healthy. We do screen for mental health issues that we don't work with. Emotions are not a mental illness, however, and emotions are just bigger coaching opportunities. So we welcome emotions. We work great with anxiety. We work great with trauma, depression. These are not concerns. There are serious mental illnesses that would be a concern, so we'll avoid that. But so I'll spare you from the stories, unless someone has a specific question where I can give an example that might help. I do want to share my favorite Carl Jung quote: "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. And since we don't know what we don't know, right? We just, the end. That's all you have to say about that. We just don't know. So what would it be like if we could dip below the surface? As we look out at the lake from the hillside, down at the water in the bottom, we can look at that murky center, and beneath that dark, scary surface where all the monsters lurk, if we can create enough safety to go beneath the surface and see what's there, we can dip beneath the surface, see what's there, and then we can take action to change things. But once we dip beneath the surface and we find that we don't die, we can actually go deeper into the surface, beneath the surface. So we call that, in our world, we separate subconscious and unconscious, where we will go beneath the surface into the subconscious, things that are just not in our conscious awareness for whatever reason, whether it's suppressed or forgotten or whatever, doesn't matter. Beneath that, we have access to all the intelligence of life itself, the quantum field, source energy, God, whatever it is for you is beneath that surface. And there the miracles happen. And we don't have to figure it out anymore. And people come back completely different. I liken it to the smartphone. And of course, every time you get a metaphor and then that has to do with technology, it changes every other week. But on my phone, I had it the other day, I got it to do it again, where you press and hold an app on your smartphone and they all get jiggly, and then you can move them around. Simply recalling a memory makes it jiggly. That's the technical term for biochemically destabilizing it. And when we dip into our jiggly bits, then we can work with them. We call it dip, see, do. We can dip beneath the surface, we can see what's there, and then we can take action. This goes back to Candace Pert's research in the early 70s. She discovered the opioid receptors at the cellular level, identified the brain cells, if you will, of each cell, or the cellular memory. so-called. And only in the year 2000, the researchers discovered that simply recalling a memory destabilizes it, but we know we have to be in the memory in order to change it. Not reliving the trauma, but we need to be in the memory. And now we can create enough safety so that we can use the power of imagination to change it without reliving the old traumas or the old stories. Again, trauma being, it doesn't matter. I've worked with whether it was an attempted murder or the bully on the playground. And more often than not, it's the bullying on the playground scenes that keep showing up in my world. Because most of the people with capital T traumas have done a lot of work on that, and they think that's why they have the beliefs they have, or they know that's why they have the beliefs they have. And then when they close their eyes and dip into their session, it's the bully on the playground that shows up, or some relatively, what you would think would be something that would be relatively small, but it's where something got stuck. That kid that called you ugly on the lunch line or whatever it was. And the thing is, these emotions that got stuck for whatever reason, they just want to flow. So emotions flow in the body like water flowing in a river. Not in New England in the wintertime. We're talking in a normal flowing river. So as I recall for that, I took that picture in North Conway, New Hampshire. So I said, yeah, that would be frozen right now, most of it. So emotions are dynamic. They're changing from moment to moment to moment as they're flowing through your body. Now, when you experience the feeling, when you feel the feels, where is it? The feeling is already in your body. And now you resist it, which is natural response to a negative emotion. We don't want to feel the negative emotion. So we resist it, and we throw a pebble in the river to stop it, or we throw a boulder in the river and we build a dam and we stop it. So now the emotion is flowing through the river, we stop it and we have a dam and they can't flow anymore. Neither can our positive emotions, but our life has to just figure out a way around these boulders, and everything becomes turbulent and unpleasant. And so what we tried to resist now, not only what we resist persists, but it expands. That's the rest of that quote. I know everybody says what we resist persists. The rest of the quote says what we, not only does it persist, but it expands. That's really important. If we would just let it flow, it'll flow, and it flows downstream. Negative emotions dissipate naturally if we allow them. It's just too scary and hard to allow them. And so we're stuck with them. And so this is a tool where we can find the stuck emotions and allow them to dissipate and learn in moment to moment to allow us to experience a richer, fuller life by allowing our current emotions, whether they're sad or grief or anger or rage or love, whatever it is that we're feeling in the moment, to be in that experience. So I'm pausing to police myself so that I don't talk for 25 minutes on each slide, because it's a short day here. So let's go into an experience for, I don't know, maybe we'll play for 10 minutes or so. A full session would be an hour to an hour and a half. So we're going to play for maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And we'll do this as a group. So I have no idea what you're experiencing. If we were doing it one-on-one, and Tim, if I were working with you one-on-one, you would be participating out loud, right? So if we're going to do a little body sensing, if you told me that you had a knot in your shoulder and it's the size of your fist, I would be helping you develop that and just asking questions about that. And we wouldn't spend time exploring your whole body. When it's doing it as a group, I have no idea what you're each experiencing. So it's going to feel a little like guided imagery, except you'll notice that you're creating your experience completely. Like the last guided imagery I listened to had me get in a rowboat and paddle out to a quiet island somewhere. I didn't want to get in the rowboat and paddle out to an island. So you get to create your experience. And if what I'm suggesting doesn't make sense, you have your own experience. If your thoughts come in and you get lost, don't worry about it. You can't do it wrong. What would make it better is if I were just doing it one-on-one, I would follow your experience. It'll be better than where I take you. So, so that's, I just want to clear that up. What we'll do is we'll do a little, what we call dipping. We'll just dip beneath the surface of the pond, see what's there. And maybe we'll bring in a virtual resource. That could be an angel. It could be a deity. It could be SpongeBob SquarePants showed up for me once. It could be Batman. It could be anyone or anything. It could be anything from, it could be a puppy, could be the dog you had when you were a kid, somebody, a friend from elementary school shows up. Whatever shows up spontaneously comes from spontaneous imagination. And we think of spontaneous imagination as being a third party. You don't have to think anything up. Just for whatever reason, a green furry blob just showed up as the image of the knot in my shoulder. Well, then that's what it is. It's perfect. Okay, so we'll just welcome without any need to edit or filter or judge any of it. There's no particular meaning and nothing can be done wrong. That would be impossible. And so I'll lead you with a little bit of a dialogue probably. There's nothing scripted here, but just to keep it brief and yet complete something. And then we can talk about it on the other side. So you're in charge of your own experience and you can't do it wrong. And everybody's here, nobody's driving, so I don't have to worry about telling you to close your eyes. Is there anything in the chat that I need to know about?
I think so.
Okay. All righty. Well then, so let's begin. Yeah, and this doesn't have to be eyes closed, by the way. Sometimes I have clients that, if they, for whatever reason, don't want to close their eyes, don't feel safe, whatever, it doesn't matter. You can do it eyes open or closed. The invitation is that you'll tend to go deeper when we close off the input and do close your eyes. So let's go ahead and do that if that's comfortable for you. And let's just start by taking a few deep cleansing breaths. Just imagine on your next inhale that you are breathing in through the front of your chest, right into the center of your heart. And imagine you're exhaling out of the small of your back. Just breathing in a sense of love and support. And just exhaling whatever wants to be released. And on your next inhale, imagine that you are also breathing right into the front of your neck, right into your throat, as well as your heart, and exhaling out of your back and your belly at the same time. And now imagine you're also breathing into the top of your head, right into your crown, and exhaling out of your back and your belly and your hands and feet. So your whole body is just breathing and relaxing. And now just look around inside your body, just like you're looking at it in 3D. And just sensing whatever it is that calls your attention, just notice. Whether it's a physical sensation or it might just be a knowing. It might even just be nothing at all calling your attention, and just notice what that's like. Your nothing can be your something. Might just be calm, or you might be sensing more than one thing calling your attention, or it might be moving. All of that is perfect. So just become aware of whatever you're noticing or not noticing. If there's more than one thing calling your attention, you just notice whichever one is calling your attention most. Or maybe they're connected, maybe it's all one energy. And just notice if it has a shape or not. Maybe it's amorphous, like a blob or a cloud. And just notice if it's flat or is it three-dimensional. And what's the color or colors that your imagination is giving it? Even if it's clear or black or white, or something outrageous and fantastical or very simple. Maybe it's just the natural color of that part of your body. And just notice if the surface is hard or soft. Or maybe it's gooey or liquid or something else, misty. And what's beneath the surface? Is it the same through and through? Or perhaps it's hollow or more dense or different in some other way. You might notice there's movement, or it might be very still. Or it might be changing or not. And so now, just using the power of your own imagination, go ahead and move into this energy. Be in that color, in that texture, that density, whatever it is. Even if it's solid or liquid or something else, you can just be in it. And just notice what it's like to allow yourself to be in it. You'll naturally just find yourself wherever you're most drawn, whatever is most compelling. You might be on the surface, you might be in the center. If it's moving, you might find yourself just moving with it, flowing or spinning. You might find it very small and cramped, or it might be large and open, even cavernous. You might even find yourself exploring. We're feeling very, very still. Just sensing whatever wants to be sensed there. And as thoughts and judgments and other things come and go, just notice them coming and going. That's what they do. And you can easily just continue to sense whatever else wants to be sensed. It might be cool or warm. You might feel a weight, a certain heaviness or lightness. And now your imagination is going to bring forth a virtual resource who wants to be with you. This might be like an angel or a deity. Like we talked about, it could be a superhero or an animal or something from nature. Or even your future self. Anyone or anything that just pops in just like that. And just welcome whoever or whatever that is. Just notice how that feels. Is your resource near or further away? And you can just invite your resource to be closer if that feels right, if they're further away. It might be someone or something you know or not. Notice what has changed and what is the same as your resources there with you. Things may all be very much the same, or they may be very different. You may be drawn to have a spontaneous dialogue or sharing with your resource or not. You might sense that there's more to do later through journaling or dialoguing or through imagination to follow up with your resource. And you can ask your resource if they'll stay with you or be with you in the future. So whatever wants to happen there, just let that happen. And if there's anything that wants to do with whatever you're sensing in your body, just notice the size, shape, color of that, of what's there now. If it feels right, you can ask your resource if they would hold that for you to work with another time, or they may just work with it right now. And as you sense being resourced, or you might be sensing that you are self-resourced. Whatever is needed for this journey is perfect. So if you didn't have a separate resource, you're just doing this journey on your own for now. And just notice how that feels, that you can do that. And just notice what you're experiencing in your body right now, as every cell in your body has a memory of this experience, and whatever wants to be remembered, whatever wants to be brought forth and is useful or insightful in some way will be brought back with you. And just with your eyes still closed, go ahead and stretch your arms and legs, wiggle your fingers and toes, become aware of what you're noticing in your body now, and then just gently let the light come back into your eyes. And welcome back. How's everybody feeling? Don't make me pull out the Betty Davises again. Just feel free to unmute, and we have a few minutes to take a couple of shares. I promise I won't process the heck out of it, but we'll take a minute to share anything that wants to be shared from that. Who would be willing to share whatever your experience was like for you, maybe from your body sensing or your resource or what happened, or what did you notice about that experience? Most of you are muted, so just unmute and start talking. Remember to blow on that coffee cup first before you drink.
So I guess mine, I'll just do a quick share. It was in my shoulders where I hold tension and stress and all that. And originally it was sort of like a rusty pipe that you'd find like in the bottom of a boat. And then I started polishing it. And then my other friend came in to help me keep it polished and looking good. So it really got to be much more gold and shiny. And so that same pipe that holds me down is also the one that supports me.
Nice. I love it. So without even knowing what any of that means, I just love it, because I totally trust the unconscious knows what it's doing, right? And the language of the right brain is metaphor and imagery. And when we go into a full session, we're not just so right brain. It's actually a very whole brain experience. So your thinking brain wouldn't know what to do with the emotion stuck in your shoulder. And your thinking brain is very entertained by the idea of making it tangible. So once it becomes a rusty pipe, it's now has a tangible form. And we can work with that. And we can move into a rusty pipe and imagine being inside it. And then we can go on all sorts of journeys, and we can go to the original source of the rusty pipe, whatever it is. And then we get to regenerate images in memory. And that's where you end up on the playground, or we end up at the at a original trauma, or we end up with, the teacher who humiliated you in high school, or whatever it was where the feeling came from. And then we redo it. And because time travel is possible, we can absolutely change the past. We can go to that time. My first experience with that was, mine was a knot in the shoulder. And I was on the stage with Jack Canfield in front of an auditorium full of people, crying and blowing snot all over his shoulder into a microphone. And all because I raised my hand and shared something I thought was a simple, easy share. And once I closed my eyes and we went to the knot in my shoulder, even though I wasn't very good at this at the time, I thought, well, it doesn't have a color, it's a knot. And then I moved into the knot, and what showed up was the memory of learning of my mother's death when I was 7 years old. Now, it had been 40 some years after that, and it wasn't the trauma of losing my mother that was what was stuck. What was stuck was the memory of one of my older brothers who told me the news. He said, you have to be a grown-up now and don't cry. So we got to redo that. We can go back in the past. We don't change the traumatic event factually, but we change the dialogue. And so now, by doing an out loud dialogue with my brother, I now have a visceral feeling. I have a new emotional memory of that being done very differently. And the nervous system treats the imagined event similar to a real event, which is why fear is so effective, right? It's an imagined event. So we create an imagined event that is totally generated by me. It was generated by the client. And so it's the best event because it isn't a guided imagery. It's created by the subconscious or the unconscious or God or the angel or your dog or whoever showed up in the session. That source is way better than the expert or any expert could be. And so then we create a new emotional memory, and then we lock that in. Like we go into the jiggly bits, we make the phone all jiggly, and we can move around, have a dialogue, have an imagined different event, and then lock that memory in place. And factual memory remains intact. We're not messing with anything here that changes the past or the factual memory. But the feelings associated with it are now just a story. They're not a felt experience when it's recalled. And so I don't have to react to the life events, still trying to figure out how to be a grown-up. I spent most of my childhood and the first half of my adulthood trying to be a grown-up, whatever that means, until I changed that. Now I don't have to do that. So fantastic. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for sharing that, Jerry. Anyone else have a body sensing? Did anybody have no body sensing or resource that they want to share about, or what was that like for you? As one other person is rehearsing in their head, should I share or should I not? And of course you should. No? Not required.
This is Jeff. I'll share.
Thanks, Jeff.
So I think my resource showed up as my father, who passed away unexpectedly 16 years ago. And just showed up as a resource, which was odd for me, I think. Surprised.
Yeah. We love surprises. And we regularly find that we're more resourced than we thought. And sometimes our resources show up. And so if we were doing a one-on-one and someone shows up who has passed, we might identify, you might get a sense of that being a spiritually evolved form of the person who's passed, or a very human form of them, or both, or maybe it doesn't matter. We just explore that, and we get to regenerate and redo the things that we want to do with our parents. And we find compassion and forgiveness is so much easier when we can go and have a dialogue and stand in their shoes, have the full experience for a back and forth dialogue, which we didn't have time to do today. I think I said that we were going to do that, and I looked at the clock and said, no, don't do that. Abort. So yeah, there's so much juice out there. There's so much goodness we can do and good work we can do when these resources show up. And if we were to think about who you want to be there as a resource, or other tools that use resources, other methods, when we ask the client a good question, all questions go to the thinking brain. The question is subject to maybe being the right or wrong answer, or the best answer, the most effective answer, the right, whatever it is, it's going to be subject to analysis or judgment. And when imagination as a third party brings it forth, it's absolutely the right resource. It's absolutely the right answer. So once we get into dialoguing, we never ask questions because we don't want to turn on the thinking brain that much. We want it to partner with the unconscious as a whole brain experience. So that's the nature of the work. That's how it feels to be in it. And I saw from most of your faces, some of you are having some, a lot going on in there. And just through your body language, it seemed like some good stuff was happening. And it's really, you don't really have to figure out anything. Has anyone done those 10-day silent meditation retreats, like the Vipassana meditations? It's really the Vipassana meditation technique. It's really what the Buddha was teaching 2,500 years ago, is that emotions are intangible. You can't figure them out. Settle into your body and sense your body from head to toe. And as you sense it, if you react, it dissipates the negative ones and it dissipates the positive emotions. They go away when you chase them, and the negative emotions expand. And when we don't react, the opposite happens, which is what we want. So if you could sense in your body without reacting and allow it to flow, negative emotions dissipate on their own and positive emotions naturally expand. So that is the Vipassana meditation. 10 days of sitting and 10 hours a day in silent meditation did not help me perfect that by any stretch. It's a horrible experience. I highly recommend it to do at least once a year. It's absolutely miserable, and the best thing you'll ever do. So that's the nature of it. I love getting to come and play and dip your toe into the pond a little bit. I promised, remember the cartoon here, I promise there's no opportunity that's going to go away. If this resonates with you, we'll be teaching it 10 years from now. Don't worry about it, whenever it works or if it doesn't work. We did figure out how to do it on Zoom, and that's been working great. It's a 3-month program that begins with a 5-day live training and 3 months of support. And people who work with a lot of trauma typically go on to the next level of training. There's 3 levels. So you could literally make a career of it, or just create an adjunct to the work you're already doing. A lot of coaches just package it with, everybody gets it and they brand it and they call it whatever they're calling it that fits into their work. If you want more information about that, I will throw I'll throw a link into the chat and you can go right there. And maybe I won't throw a link in the chat. Did that not go in there? Okay, there it went in the chat. So there's the homepage. We have a 1-day retreat we're doing next week, I think it is, for just a bigger dip into it, just for your own personal growth. And we've got some trainings coming up. We'd be happy to share with you. And Alexa, turn my feelings off. She really doesn't have access to your feelings. She knows everything you want to buy. I tell you, that bitch knows just about everything, but she does not know your feelings. I did teach her how to train my Labradoodle. If you all haven't done that with your puppies, when Luke goes nuts, I say, Alexa, control your dog. And she says, Luke, down, Luke, Luke, sit, Luke, get the ball. Where's the ball? It's hysterical. And he falls for it every time so far. So, but you can't turn off your feelings. However, you don't need to. You can let them flow. You absolutely can. And the ones that are stuck, that have been there for 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 years, we can find the stuck dam and gently and safely release that dam so that they flow once again. So that's my story. I'm going to stop my share so that whatever happens next can happen next. And I thank you for letting me come and play with you and share a little bit about my world. The end.